Brandon Pacheco. Welcome back to Greenlight Cinema. Oh gosh, I've been so busy today wiping the tears out of my eyes after I heard the news about Acolyte Season 2 being cancelled. Oh my gosh. Oofda, it's the worst, you know? Without having full of white, privileged, white actors acting white. And you know, nothing says embarrassing when the seasons have changed and you're still reviewing the same series of the same platform of the same show. Betches, let's talk about it. Opening scene, Osha wakes up, just like in the last episode. This time she's like in a cool cave looking place. Apparently, this is where Quirm's home is. Kofor has been Quirm's planet. It looks like he's inhabited this planet. Osha sees him like going to take a bath or something in the lake. The grossest part of the episode, guys, is him is this fucking Quirm guy bathing. I'm like, oh jeez, for Pete's sake, I have a 5-punch card. I can't waste it on French. Jeez, for Pete's sake, let's get on with this episode. By the way, before I get too far ahead of myself, if you hadn't already, please like this episode, subscribe to my channel for more future awesome content, and share this episode, guys. Alright, moving on. And before I get any further, I want to mention this is our very first, and it hints around and it says confirmed that this is Young Palpatine. We have our very first Young Palpatine episode. Oh, the Adventures of Young Palpatine. What a great show that Disney Plus is missing out on. Ah, jeez. So May and Sol are leaving Kofor, the planet, and as soon as she gets on the ship, she's like trying to, kill him. She pulls out her knife. She's already trying to murder him and take his ship. And he's like, Osha, come here. Remember, they did the whole switch change twin thing, so it's like this whole time, is he still coming to, or does he really know that that's not Osha? He's playing some clever ruse for some odd reason to buy time for whatever. Sol just stops May from killing him. Like, did he know that I guess he's a Jedi, right? And maybe he sensed his life was in danger. I don't know. It didn't really explain. This episode's good, but for all its good parts to it, there's like weird, like the ship has mishaps, and it's like, what's wrong with it? And then it goes on to it. It's like, oh, this is just dumb, divisive things to tell the story. And then we have this real interesting scene when he like hits his hand. He like has like a real human moment where he's like, showing like his pain and anger, like, sides that lead to the dark side. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Quirm really got his goat, But then all that tension gets cut by Basil and his little goofy antics. He's retrieved Pip, the little droid, somehow. He's like trying to like hook him up to the ship, like he knows, like Pip and Basil, who don't speak English or talk at all, I guess, they're just like communicating with each other. Like, boy, things are really getting out of hand, right? And next we have our girl scene I was talking about earlier, where Quirm's taking a bath and Osha's like, this is how I'm gonna get this guy. I'm gonna wait till he's taken a bath, In this part I felt master and apprentice. Let's talk about Leslie, our director here. Her master, I guess in a way, was Harvey Weinstein. Oh yeah, and she's brilliant, by the way, but she has a lot of sexual innuendos in the scene that made it hard to watch. Almost impossible to get through a scene without laughing about the sexual innuendo. It's explicit! Osha picks up Quirm's lightsaber, and the very first thing he asks her is, how does it feel? While he's, bathing. He asks her this, and then he's like, are you hungry? He said, are you gonna kill me or join me in the water? And he's like, well, allow me to put on my clothes. He's like, would it be dishonorable if they kill me like this? How am I reading your thoughts? He's screwing with her head, but really he's just vibing with her, as the kids say. No, geez. Osha asks, did you use that lie on May? She's like, I'm not that easily corrupted. Osha's like, Soul will save me. You know, his force and his strength in the force is very powerful. And Quirm's like, whoa, like, he's like intrigued, but he's kind of surprised, but he's a little irritated. It seems like he's like, why are you saying that he's powerful? He's like, that's your strength, Osha. And it's like, oh, here comes that, it's almost like he took that on as a challenge. Oh, I can't be corrupted, but let me see if I can. Osha is exactly what Quirm is looking for. So next, we see Soul and Osha / May back on the ship. I guess that Soul, by now, has realized that this is not Osha. He like hugs her tight in a weird, he gives her a weird hug. And you know, I'm gonna tell the High Council everything that happened, you know. And as soon as he starts talking to her about like things that, you know, kind of intrigue her and maybe would possibly get made a turn, you get like a little interruption and it's like Palpatine. It's our little scene with young Palpy, but he's going by like Mach and Mach and Pulp / young Palpy. So the power on the ship just goes like that for some odd reason. Soul tells me to go take a look. He calls it short of the ship. I don't know. Next, we get a really awesome dolly shot, guys, of Coruscant. I love the shots of Coruscant in this episode. The frame is a lot less cluttered, and that's probably because it's like 100 years before we know. But the structure of the Jedi Council at Coruscant looks so like actual, like real, just real good. I was very impressed. We see Branstera. I can never remember her name. She's talking to a senator, and they're talking about reviewing the Jedi Council over because this power-hungry senator. And as she's talking about this, Palpatine / Muck walks through the room, and he's acting all panicky and worried, and like it's so on point from like the Palpatine from the Phantom Menace. I don't know who this actor is, but he is doing an excellent Ian McDiarmid. Oh my gosh, I love his Sheev Palpatine. Branstra's like, have you heard from Soul and the others? And he's like, unfortunately, we lost contact. The team is, I believe the Soul has got some casualties in his team. Oh dear, oh my. You know, acting like he's doing that stuff, you know. And she's like, alright, gather a team for Kofar. And they keep talking about him, but young Palpatine guy, I was eating his scenes up with my blue milk, you know. Like, I wanted more of Sheev young Palpatine. I'm like, man, oh my gosh, this guy, he's a fascinating character, and he needs to be stopped, and I need to know how he's created. Yeah. Oh yeah, back to the review. So back to Quirm's interesting part about this is Osha's not being held captive. He's like, here's a ship if you want to go, and I'm making food if you're hungry. And he's like, but let me just tell you a little bit more about me. And like the whole time he's walking, she's got like his Jedi sword like pulled, but she don't have it turned on. She's like has it ready to go. You know, we get to see in this episode in a way how a Sith is kind of created. It helped open my mind to old Star Wars, helped me realize things that I never noticed or realized before, you know. And we're gonna get to that. Oh, you betcha. Back to me working on the ship. And yeah. And it's a dumb, boring scene. This droid Pip is like our first version of R2-D2, like, because Basil and the droid were working together. But then Basil gets scared. These two dumb characters. He gets scared by May or something, and he runs off. And then the droid Pip, after Basil runs away, he sprays May in the face like a oil gag, like R2-D2, and like, oh gosh, how stupid. So she resets him. So I guess it means he's a Sith droid or he's bad. Back to somewhere interesting, Quirm's home. Here we are. Osha's asking Quirm, you know, like she sees him working on his armor, right? And she sees these scars on his back. And she's like, where'd you get those scars from? And he's like, oh, Jedi, you know. But, you know, he could have been lying about that. But why would he at this point, you know? This is Quirm's teaching moment with Osha. Only she acts like she don't know she's being taught. anything. Quirm mentions your emotions, fear, and loss, your desires. How she's like, but that's the dark side. He's like, yeah, you don't have to practice the Jedi ways to know the Force. Osha confronts Quirm. Yeah, you know, they finally get this talking point. And Quirm, they have this moment. These two characters, he's teaching, she's asking questions, filling each other out. You know, she confronts him. You know, you murdered my friends, and his excuse is actually airtight. He's like, yeah, I'm a Sith, they're Jedi, they threatened my way of existence, so I had to take him out, you know. Worm is playing on Osha's heart. He is like asking her like difficult, tough things, like, why do you love people who can't love you back? Who can't go as deep as you go? And he's like offering her food and stuff. This reminds me of Empire Strikes Back, and I'll tell you why. Because she asked him what's in that helmet, and he's like, oh, it's made by some materials. But anyway, how does this remind me of Empire Strikes Back? Like, it's only what you take with you. That's what Yoda told Luke.
Your weapons, you will not need them.
Weapons, you will not need them. And it's like, this was their training. This was Yoda's way of training without having one of those helmet things for Luke. And I'm like, hashtag save Acolyte. So Osha keeps claiming to be uncorruptible to Quirm. So Quirm's like, oh yeah, you know, let me take up that challenge even more. What'd you come here to do, you know? You come here to do? Remember, you have that lightsaber that you're holding in mine. And she's like, oh yeah. And he's like, why aren't you a Jedi? You know, why don't people love you? He's like getting in her head, and so she like pulls out this blade on him, and he finally got that side of her, the dark side, you know. He had been driving at it all this time. So it cuts to the next scene. We see Veranstra, and she's like grabbing up Mock Palpatine, and she's like, you got the team assembled? And he's like, yeah, but are you going? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I thought you get all queasy in hyperspace, you know, I'm trying to watch out for you. She's like, I don't get sick, I took my Pepto today, shut the fuck up. And Mock's like, you know, really, you don't have to go. He's like, the Jedi casualties were probably due to the harsh environments and climates on the planet along with its inhabitants. Perfect explanation for everything. She's like, so let's get a ship and go. Next we have Sol, and he's like kind of acting sus. It's like, oh, if you're trying to like give yourself away, you're doing a great job. Think that Sol has finally reached that point where he's like, this is definitely not Osha I'm on the ship with. Oh crap. You know, May is doing a really bad job of acting like Osha. Like, I know she hadn't seen her sister in years, but she don't have to be so smug in every scene, you know. May asks Sol, she's like, did you tell me everything? She's like, did you tell me everything? Kind of, you know, trying to guilt him, you know. But the ship cuts back on as soon as he's about to start talking to her, you know. And he looks kind of guilty. So like May runs to like the cockpit of the ship and like grabs the radio and is like radioing for help for some odd reason. And before she like finishes, who's like she's saying she's gonna be like, she's like, help, she gets blasted by Sol. I'm like, oh, and finally, you know, it's a crazy scene, you know. And whoever May contacted, They give clear instructions to not cut off the transmission, and Sol cuts it off as soon as they're like, don't cut it. And he goes rogue and just takes the ship and flies off. Or maybe, it's unclear in the scene, maybe that's as Veranstra, Mock, and the team landed on Kofar. Veranstra looks like she's like got something eating at her the whole time. Like she's like, and so she gets Mock to talk to the village people, like you know, like Sol did to Jackie, like go talk to the village people and figure out everything. And he's like probably feeds her bullshit story. He's like, he's like, yeah, the bugs and of the conditions of this planet is what killed the Jedi. Yep, just like I told you on Coruscant. So you ready to go back now? And she's like, no. Let's go check this out. She's like, stop taking this so personally. We see again, Quirm, he's like, yeah, you ought to try on this helmet, you know, it's made from the same, Kurtasuk. It sounded like a super fictional material when he said it. I was like, yeah, I bet that's a real made up material that's useful. Yeah. He's like, try on my helmet. You know, he's like, we used it as younglings. Next, back still on Kofar. We're all on Kofar. And Branstra and Mach and the team are like surveying. You know, they're like, oh, who could have done it? You know, he's like, oh my, the humanity. Oh, gee. I bet that these... Wait a minute. No, who could have killed all these young Jedi? A real experienced person with the Force. Like Soul. And then Branstra's like, well, that's a hell of an accusation, Mach. You might want to back it up some. Because he's like, wow, it's like an explosion of extraordinary power. I'm like, man, these characters that are bad are really giving themselves away. They're like practically wearing targets. Like, I'm a bad guy. I'm sweating and getting excited about the evilness of this massacre. Quirm's the only one coming out of this episode unscathed, kind of. I mean, at this point, it feels like maybe Quirm and Osha may be the only two that are like kind of like anti-hero, maybe struggling with a little bit of darkness. Quirm a lot more so. Next, we see that Soul has restrained me. And again, it's like, well, I'm going to give you the talk, and you're going to listen. Cut to now, it's the next scene. And it's like, when are we going to hear this crazy-ass story that it's like... Oh, you're gonna hear it, and then it gets cut off because the ship happens, or a mishap, or a next scene, and now it's like, Pete's sake, just tell the story, you know? So the episode ends with Osha trying on the helmet, and she's like breathing, and it's like, cuts to credits, and I'm like, I'm really enjoying this, guys. Oh, I'm gonna just wrap up 7 and 8 in Palau. Wrap it up in one nice bow of an episode, a review. Alright guys, that is my review for Star Wars The Acolyte Episode 6. Thank you guys for sticking it through with me, clicking on this video, watching my review, and just sitting through the whole thing, or just checking out some of it. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your support. Please like this episode and subscribe to my channel. Show your support, guys, and share this episode, guys. Please. Hashtag Save Acolyte Disney. Save Acolyte. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Alright, guys. Brando out.
Oh yeah, you betcha.